All right, I'm calling to order this meeting of the, I have to turn that on, of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for Tuesday, August 8th, 2017. And we will begin by rising to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Matsuoka.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Para cualquier miembro del público tenemos los aparatos disponibles para escuchar la interpretación en español. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. We do have headsets available for the hearing impaired on the side tables, if anyone in the audience would like a headset. Do we?
Our headsets, well, since we don't have anybody
Okay.
who needs a headset, we're okay.
All right, so we'll move to item C5, announcement of closed session action. We have one item to report out, item B1, public employee appointment. The board took action to approve Ms. Clancy Chu as the interim assistant principal at Goleta Valley Junior High School. It was moved by Mr. Perez Ulloa and seconded by Ms. Sims Moten, and passed unanimously 3-0. I just want to say, as you can see, Ms. Kate Parker and Ms. Laura Capps are not in attendance this evening, but I would just like to state that we do have a quorum necessary to run this meeting. And Ms. Chu is not here, but I was going to welcome her to the district and say that I'm sure Superintendent Matsuoka will be sharing more about her, and we're thrilled and welcome you and look forward to working with you. We will now move to item C6, Superintendent's report. Mr. Matsuoka.
Clancy Chu will be with us at the next board meeting. She's already busy at work at Goleta Valley Junior High tonight. So she's actually worked before the board, well, right when the board approved her. So, and some of us know Clancy well. I think she spent 20 plus years in our district, a longtime math teacher. So, and I have one other story to share. I was just passed along a note, and so Jose Luis Saleta passed away on August 3rd. So that's very recently. And he was born in Madrid, Spain, which they spent 3 days passing through Spain. And he was educated there, and he came to the United States to study engineering. He came to UCSB, completed a master's in geography. He settled here, and he supported our students and Latino community. And he was a longtime translator for us. I believe he was in the lobby last June. Was he here? I remember, yeah, there was somebody in a wheelchair, and everybody was gathering around him, and, I didn't know him, but, so a 2-year battle with Lou Gehrig's disease. And so he just passed away. So, let's just pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of his life and his work among us. Thank you. There will be a memorial service Sunday, August 13th at the Casa de la Raza from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Descanse en paz. And that concludes my comments.
All right, thank you. So, board, do we have any comments or correspondence to share?
I do have some comments. I just wanted to say thank you to Lauren and for coordinating the Fiesta Parade. It was a lot of fun walking the parade and representing the school district. And we were just doing a lot of things. I thought, are my feet going to hurt at the end of this? But they really was really well, because we were kind of doing the move to the left, move to the right dance along the way. So it was great. Thank you so much for your work, and truly enjoyed that as well. Oh, I was going to say one comment was, they were, where's your float? And like, oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's right. They just approved a stadium for $38 million, so they don't have a float. So, thank you.
Anyone else? No? All right, I will just add, too, that I really appreciated being a part of the parade. This is the second parade that I've been in. So I look forward to many more parades. And I know I will not wear little short boots because that was really crazy. So I will definitely be wearing flip-flops. But anyway, thank you also to Lauren for helping coordinate that and getting us on the docket. So any public comments? All right. We'll move forward to the next item, D, acceptance of donations.
I just did had a comment before, except that is on the two large donations. I was just wondering on the Franklin Elementary, is that a one-time pilot? And if it's successful, will that go to other schools as well? So I'm not sure to answer that.
Do you have it up on your screen?
I do.
What's the descriptor?
It is commercial dishwasher and water heater. It's part of our energy pilot program.
Mr. Hedyunk will answer that question.
Yes, now that you've said what it was, this is a donation to the district. The gas company's involved. It's part of reducing energy, and the manufacturer of the unit was also involved. And so Franklin was the place that it fit, and it was installed this year. And so it was a great cooperative effort between our maintenance department, the gas company, and the manufacturer.
Okay. And is this a one-time pilot, or will other schools be?
There were 2 schools selected in California. We were one of the 2 schools for the pilot.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the last question, I think I kind of know, is the other large donation of the $250,000, the Incredible Children's Art Network for Visual Arts program. So is that one time over years, or is that support of that program?
I'll share what I've learned over the last 13 months. ICANN has been supporting the district, I believe, for 10 years, a long time, and really incubated the visual arts in our elementary schools. And the funder behind ICANN he's done some shifts and changes. Continue to reach out. His name is Jim Kearns, and I was really grateful that he continued his donation this year, and I will be meeting with him relatively soon, and just want to explore his vision and his hearts and dreams about supporting the arts. But he's been supporting our district for a long, long time, to the tune of millions of dollars. So great thanks and appreciation to him.
I move approval with gratitude, the acceptance of the donations for August 8, 2017.
Second.
All right, it was moved by Ms. Sims Moten and seconded by Mr. Paredes Ulloa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. So let's move to item E, the consent agenda. Are there any items that fellow board members would like to pull?
Yes, like E5, 7, and F2.
Nothing.
Okay. All right. So we will come back to these at the end of the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it was moved by Mr. Paredes Ulloa and seconded by Ms. Sims Moten, and that passes unanimously. So now we will move forward with the action agenda. Item F1, the action agenda approval of addition of Sim-XA insecticide dust to the approved pesticide list. Mr. Hetyunk.
Thank you. We had a first for me in the district in my years here, in that we had a flea infestation under multiple buildings, some of the portable classrooms at Monroe Elementary School. We called in a pest control company, helped identify what the issue was, where they were, how the animals were getting in. We've since made sure that all the animals have been removed, and before we sealed up all the openings that were available for small animals to get into the portables. With fleas, you can clean a classroom. You can get rid of the flea eggs. You can vacuum with some commercial grade vacuums, and you can clean. But where you can't get rid of the flea eggs is underneath. Flea eggs will remain dormant until a food source is identified, and they can remain dormant for years, and a food source shows up and boom, all the eggs hatch. So we're asking permission to use this pesticide underneath classrooms, not in classrooms. So if a food source shows up, all of these flea eggs do not hatch and become active. The first thing I like to do when I look at something that's on our pesticide list or approved list is to look at the MSDS sheet, the manufacturer's data safety sheets, and look, what does it tell you to do if you get some of it on you? And in this case, it's just kind of, well, soap and water. And so it'll be in areas, it'll be identified as having had it, so our maintenance department knows about it. So if they take appropriate caution if they have to do any work underneath that building. And like I say, it would not be used inside of a classroom where students can be exposed to it. We'd like to use this product this summer before school starts underneath these areas, so if a animal somehow does re-enter underneath by some means, that we don't have all the old flea eggs hatching and have fleas in the classroom.
I just had a question thank you for getting on this right away. And so did this just happen? Was it soon? Was this during like summer school time with the school being open? Or
I'm not sure exactly when it happened. These are the portables that are used for the lower grade students against the highway. And I think that it's something that happened towards the end of school. And we got the report and finally figured out what it was, and then we're taking preventative measures to make sure that the classrooms are ready for students when they come back in the fall.
Okay, and then one more question. So because it's a portable, are they susceptible to animals getting underneath, or are you looking at how to do preventive measures for others?
Our portables all are ventilated underneath. That is to help prevent excessive moisture, which can lead to mold. So you want to keep classrooms and areas underneath classrooms ventilated so you don't have mold growing underneath. And whenever you have areas like that where you have some vents, some of the vents could be damaged. You also have utilities coming in under there where you may have a hole drilled with a pipe coming through that may not be sealed. In this case, they were larger animals, and there were some areas under there where they were able to burrow under and break through a vent, and there was enough vegetation around the bottom of the portables where it wasn't noticed until we had a problem.
So would we be, as a part of ongoing maintenance, looking and checking for those types of activities?
We always do, yes.
Great, thank you.
So I just have a question. When do you plan on implementing this so as to make sure it doesn't impact, obviously, the start of school coming up?
Well, we would try to get this done before the students, if it's approved tonight, Mr. Vizzolini would schedule that as soon as possible with our pesticide applicator. We have no district employees that apply any pesticides. We always use outside people who are trained and know what they're doing, and then they send in the reports to the state of California. And we don't allow any of our employees to administer any type of pesticides, so that's why we always use an outside consultant.
Okay, thank you. You have a motion? Oh, you have a question?
Oh, sorry. So with most pesticides, there's usually like a time frame in which you probably shouldn't be around it, or where it's less, where it's the most toxic.
I think it's more perception.
Yeah.
It'll be applied underneath the portable.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to do an application on a school day or any students are around. I think it's more of a perception. We want to be able to get in there, get out, have the area closed up, and well before any students arrive on campus.
Okay. But I
just don't like students being around pesticides, whether it's in an isolated area or not. For me, it's a perception thing and a safety thing, and especially younger children.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering about. Like, is there a time frame? You know, like when you tent a house, you shouldn't be around it for X number of days.
No, it's kind of a cement dust, and it's used in fertilizers and cement, and it just lays there dormant, and hopefully no food source will happen. But if it does, and they do hatch, this should take care of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
move approval that the board approves the addition of the SEMA insecticide dust to the approved pesticide list.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So it was moved by Ms. Sims Moten, second by Mr. Paredes Ulloa, and that was passing unanimously. So we'll move to the second action agenda item, F2, adoption of Resolution 2017/18-02, approving joint use agreement with the City of Santa Barbara Police Department for 915 East Montecito Street. And Mr. Tay is not here, but Mr. Hetjunk.
I admit. Thank you. Currently, the Police Activities League has an agreement to use part of that site for an educational boxing program. They were looking for a place to have their program instead of in somebody's backyard. And so we formulated the agreement with the Police Activities League for that. The community responded very positively to having a police presence at the Parma site, and a few of the officers that were involved on that have approached the district about the possibility of having that site become a satellite office for the police department. They approached Ms. Jete and myself, and we had some discussions, and we didn't have any other immediate use for that building. That building does not currently meet the Field Act, which means that students and teachers and certificated employees cannot be housed in that building. However, classified employees could be housed. And with no current scheduled use, we thought it was a good idea just to have somebody in the building, and what better tenant than the police department to watch our property.
I had a question on what are the requirements of the Field Act? Some people can be in, some can't.
Oh, the Field Act is a requirement that was put together legislatively, which sets the standard for structural earthquake safety of buildings. And if a building does not meet the standards of the Field Act, it cannot house a school or students or teachers. We have some buildings within the district that don't meet the Field Act. Besides this building, there's the warehouse. And there is the building at Harding that Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department used quite many years, and we currently have classified staff in that building.
So if it's not meeting the earthquake standards, is there any liability with folks going in there, right?
We do look at structural safety. Schools are held to a higher standard than other buildings. There probably are buildings that we go into in Santa Barbara that are structurally sound and safe, but not to the extent that a school building is required to be. We're held to a higher standard. And I guess the highest standard would be a hospital. Currently, a lot of hospitals are undergoing retrofits or rebuilding. They're designed to be standing after a major earthquake of a higher degree of magnitude than a school. We would fall under the same as a police building, a fire station, and a school. They're all held to a certain standard. Like I say, hospitals are above that standard, and we're an essential services building, and that's the way the laws of California are. We're held more stringent.
So there's not any liability that we have to worry about in those buildings?
No.
Because they're not a school?
It's like meeting
Yeah.
it's like meeting building code in California versus Maine. They're
It's-
both structurally fine, but just they don't meet their local standards, is what you're saying.
Right. In other words, the standard for a school with the building code is higher than a regular building. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, but I have a question. Should have looked at this ahead. Dave, I'm looking at, do you have the language in front of you? Actually,
No, I don't.
Oh, Sandra can scroll. Keep going. Keep going. Oh. Actually, you gotta,
Was it the resolution or the agreement?
actually go to pull up the agreement. Thing that I'm want to make sure is that we have the ability to terminate the agreement should we want to do something different with that. It's not so much the building, but it's with the land. It's very small. I drove in the parking lot. It's only 0.67 acres. It's teeny. Now, that's option to terminate in case the building's damaged, but if you scroll up to number 2, my quick read of it says that we could possess and occupy
Of a portion.
of a portion of the premise. Yeah, that almost speaks to joint use. I don't see any language in there that says if we wanted to this just void the 5 at any point the 5-year agreement, that we have that right to do that.
Okay. Well, we can go back and bring this back on the agenda at the next meeting.
I think I would ask that we do that because I've inherited so many contracts. Right, first thing I look at is the exit clause, and I don't see a strong exit clause, and I think the police department would probably be amenable. But let's go ahead and get that. Work with Craig and let's get something in there because you never know what we might want to do with that land.
And just for the boards, since you have not done leases like this, when you jointly occupy a site that you are leasing, the board has much greater latitude on who they lease to and how the terms are set up than if you just lease something to somebody without occupying part of that area. And we do currently use the basement of that for storage, and we'll continue to do so. So we'll bring this back.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring this back to the next board meeting for approval.
Yep.
So we'll move forward to our discussion section, to item G1, discussion of board policy 5141.52. Those were the 2 action agendas. Well, we didn't take action because we're going to revise the policy so that it
Right.
includes an option for us to take over the property. Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll move then to item G1, discussion of board policy 5141.52 on suicide prevention. Ms. Wagener.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, Board, Mr. Matsuoka. I bring to you proposed new board policy 5141.52, which is suicide prevention policy. It comes out of AB 2246, which is a new law that was enacted in the state of California in 2016, requiring that all schools or all districts that serve students in grades 7 through 12 have a codified suicide prevention policy. So what I bring to you tonight is really using that word again, codification of the practices. I believe it is very timely in that this is an issue that has come more to the forefront lately for us as an area needing more focused attention and put systems in place. So I did take the CSBA suggested policy and make some adjustments to it to reflect the work that we're doing in our district and will be doing going forward. So at this time, we'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions?
So, Dr. Wagener, I was just wondering, any idea who is our designee, and my money's on you?
You are correct. I would gladly be the designee.
And just one question, this is just me nitpicking, but the very bottom paragraph, as appropriate, these measures, et cetera, et cetera. And then, what is that, second line in, it's just, but not limited to students who are bereaved by suicide. And like, I get where the language comes from, and I understand why it's there, but I don't know if we want to put in loss, just because, and I understand that loss in general would be a little more appropriate because there are change of life that happens in a student's life, there's other kinds of loss, et cetera. And I think there would just be a broader language on that one. Again, just mean it.
So perhaps students who are bereaved by suicide and other forms of loss or other types of loss.
Any other comments, questions? I just want to say that I appreciate this coming forward, and I think it's really important that we have something, like you said, systems in place and framed for this situation should it arrive. And I mean, I'm saddened to think that we have to do this, but it's really important. And I think I appreciate you doing the extra work to get it out here sooner than later. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I do want to share with the board that this policy calls for instruction to students and to staff and to families, and we will be putting in place this year for the first time a curriculum that addresses all stakeholders. It's called Signs of Suicide. And really we're working to destigmatize issues of mental health, and I think providing opportunities for all folks to do their part is going to be really encouraging. So, thank you.
Can I just add that with regards to the mental health, I mean, in the early care and education community, we are dealing with a lot of, it's called CCEFL, it's looking at those younger kids at that mental health. So will the early care and communication community, early care and education community be at this part of that community or that collaborative group at all?
The curriculum that I just shared is specifically for middle school, high school students and staff and parents, but we are working on those adverse childhood experiences and looking at trauma early in life. I'll be coming back to you throughout the school year to report on the work we're doing in general around a TK through 12 plus plan for mental health. So that definitely will be part of it.
Great, thank you.
And I just have one quick question. So in terms of the rollout of this, how do you perceive it for this following school year?
Our school counselors will be trained on August 17th. And it's actually being worked into our school counseling curriculum that they'll be bringing into classrooms. And so each school will put together a plan to do that. And then also we still need to work on the staff development and the parent education piece. So those, to answer your question more specifically, all students grades 7 through 12 will have instruction in the fall and then again in the spring. And ultimately, we want to look at adding a piece for seniors in spring of their senior year for launching off into the next phase of life, because it is a different sort of experience for them. And so more to come.
One more question. So just in terms of, obviously it's impacting students, so where will their participation be in this level of signs of suicide? So how do we educate them as well in terms of
So
that?
the students will, and I can't speak to specifics because we'll allow the sites to determine which classes and so forth, but the school counselors will be delivering the instruction, and they'll get that in school. But I also have to say that this curriculum is not the only instruction that we'll be giving, and we have a lot of other opportunities through AHA's Peace Builders and the Wellness Connection clubs that are starting at all of our traditional high schools and so forth. So it's going to be touching students and staff in a number of ways.
Thank you.
And also just the idea of really including the parents and parent engagement, because they're part of this collaborative
Right.
situation.
Most definitely.
All right, thank you. So any more questions, comments?
I just want to say I appreciate the language in this, because it doesn't sound like we're putting on a VHS and hoping that has results. And it's not like how the old DARE program used to be. It's actually something a lot more substantial and more well thought out and more well-rounded, which I really appreciate. So thank you for spearheading that.
Thank you.
Okay, so board, are you willing for us to bring this forward on the consent agenda for our next meeting?
Yes.
I don't know if I second that, but yes, I also agree.
I think we just need to agree. that we
Agree.
can- Yeah. All right, so thank you. We'll move now to item G2, the attendance report, 2016-2017. Ms. Wagonett, again.
All right. Thank you, board. I bring to you the end-of-year attendance report for 2016-17, and the good news is that we made incremental gains towards the ultimate goal. Really, we're shooting for, in terms of our annual P2 attendance, a minimum of 95%. We moved towards that goal this year and are definitely within striking distance of hitting that goal. My plan is a year from now to be sharing with you that we met and maybe even slightly exceeded that goal. As you can see, the growth is incremental, but that includes 14,000 students, and so the trends were very encouraging. We know that we really need to, in order to meet that goal, we need to do three things, and that is engage our students and have classroom instruction that's engaging and has all of our students excited to go to school. We need to educate families around what attendance really means, and have families understand what is excused and not excused, that taking a couple days off, just adding a day or two here and there because grandma and grandpa are in town or whatever is certainly understandable, but that's lost instruction time, and those are unexcused absences. So there's a lot of education we need to do. And then finally, we need to improve our systems and continue to do that around attendance. So we're working on doing those things. Next slide, please. Now, truancy rate. Truants are any student who has 3 or more unexcused absences. And when we think of truancy, we often think of the old idea of the truancy officer out rounding up the kids who didn't make it to school. But really, truancy is any 3 or more unexcused absences. The good news was that we saw an overall truancy rate drop by 4% last year in the district after holding steady for several years. We also saw that there were decreases in the truancy rates in all of our subgroups with the exception of English learners. And so that was, those are some causes for celebration. However, we do want to point out that we still have disproportionality within our subgroups, and that's something we should always be working to minimize. I do want to point out our homeless and foster youth had one of the, I think it was the biggest drop, and it was an 8% drop in truancy. And I would like to attribute part of that to the fact that we added a school social worker to work with our homeless families and carry a caseload and really work to help those families problem solve. And so I'd like to think that was part of that. We saw our rate in special education drop. It's still too high. 1/3 of our students with IEPs are truant. And so again, we need to keep working on our systems and creating engaging opportunities for our students. Next we have chronic absenteeism rate. Now, chronic absenteeism rate is when a student has missed 10% or more of the school year for any reason, excused or unexcused. And so this translates to being absent approximately, in an 180-day school year, 18 days of absence. That's a month of school missed. And so when you look at our rates, 15% of our students are chronically absent. I have additional data that has come in from our our partnership with Attention to Attendance, and what we're really seeing, and I'll share this at my first attendance report for the 17-18 school year. It's our highest rates are on our ends, TK and K, 11 and 12. Almost 40% of our seniors are chronic absentees. So we know that we need to do a lot of education and focusing on those ends. I've been talking with Dr. Ramirez about really targeting our TK and K families, educating those newer families about the importance of being in school early on and having those patterns. So we do have plans in the work for that. We had drops, so the good news is that the efforts that we put in last school year did pay off, but they are small. I want to say it's really important that our high schools showed a significant drop. They showed, overall, our 3 traditional high schools saw a drop of almost 5% in their rate of chronic absenteeism, and that's attributed to the hard work. Our junior highs actually saw an increase, though. So looking at the data, it's kind of a mixed bag. Elementary schools pretty much stayed stable. So what I've seen is we really need to take the systems that have been put in place in the high schools and bring those to the junior high and the elementary schools. So next slide, please. Our next step, we have put the deans of student engagement in place in each of our traditional high schools. We met yesterday and we held a boot camp. They were covered everything from A to Z. Part of that was attendance, a big chunk of that, the work that they're going to be doing to make sure students are in school and really move away from the more punitive aspect of what we traditionally think of when we think of deans of students. That's why we put the word engagement in there, is working with our students who are chronically absent and truant and ask, what happened? What happened to you? Become detectives and really look and figure out what's going on with students and try to figure out why these absences are happening. We were joined by the junior high school assistant principals who are overseeing attendance, and so they'll be focusing on this as well. Next we have, as I have spoken of, attendance awareness campaigns, very important with our families. September is Attendance Awareness Month, beginning of school year, and so we'll be rolling out messages to families around the importance of attendance and educating them about that. And then finally, continuing to improve those systems, using attention to attendance, or A2A, which sends communication and letters out to families, but using it as a tool for running reports and keeping track of conferencing, making sure we're working with families, and also the district attorney truancy program, which is actually called CLASS. We often say the word SARB or DA truancy, but it actually has a nice name, which is CLASS. We're going to try to class it up this year around attendance. So those are our next steps. And we're full steam ahead with continuing the work and try to continue in the right direction. So I will open it up to questions at this point.
Any questions?
Not a question. I just have a comment to say thank you very much for this. Just looking at that data, to have it in front of you and see the drops and the differentiates between the spaces. Because I was looking at, we dropped over time in terms of that, and to see the systems that we're putting in place to address those issues. So I so much appreciate that, and that it's really important about being in school. You know, it's important to do that, and begin to see that as we begin to work on that, and understanding that it's a community effort as well in terms of ensuring that our students know it. They're out in the communities, like, aren't you supposed to be in school? You know, getting their watchful eye with that. So I appreciate you bringing the data forward, and certainly appreciate the efforts that are being put forward to improve the attendance as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, I think the idea of having a dean of student engagement is really going to have an impact, and I look forward to hearing more about that as we move forward. So thank you for this update, and we will now move to return to the consent agenda items that were pulled We will start with Ms. Sims Moten. You pulled E5.
Yes. And I just had a question on the end. There was an increase to a purchase order, and I was just wondering what that increase was for. That was for, it was for $449,000, and we increased it to $27,000, and it's regarding the modular building, so I was just wondering what that was about.
Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, Dr. Reed. This was the Las Flores building, and this purchase order increases for the solar panels on top of the building that I mentioned last board meeting that will be coming before you.
Okay. I knew there was something about it, but I just didn't know what it was. I know you talked about it.
And I just now looked at it, and it wasn't very clear what it was, so I apologize for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sims Moten. Mr. Het-Yunk, and you have a second one, number 7, E7.
Let's approve each one.
Oh, I'm sorry, right. So, let's see, do we have a motion?
Yes. Where to go? I have to go back to the top. I move approval of the purchase order, move approval of the purchase order report for July 18, 2017 through July 31st, 2017.
Second.
All right, moved by Ms. Sims Moten, second by Mr. Paredes Ulloa. All those in favor?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. We'll move to the next agenda item, facilities. Ms. Sims Moten, number 7.
I just had a question. I think this has been my question before when we're being asked to approve something that's already happened. And I understand that it was an emergency, so I'm assuming that somewhere along the line it was approved that should there be an emergency, the board's not in session and you need to make a decision. And so I was wondering if this is more of a report as opposed to approving something because the action has already happened. So
Typically, when there's an emergency and fire department or Red Cross or police need to occupy our buildings, we don't have time to bring it before the board for formal approval. But this is a contract, and all contracts need board approval. And so that's why we're bringing forward it to you at this time. I used your authority to tell the fire department that they could occupy Dos Pueblos High School, just as we have an agreement with Red Cross. That's an existing agreement, but we don't have an agreement with the U.S. Forest Service. And so what we did was we looked at the use that we had last year and looked at the use this year, and our use was a little bit less this year, but they went ahead and paid us at last year's rate. Inflation costs have gone up, and so it's kind of a after the fact asking for your approval.
yeah, and I understand that. I was just trying to figure out, because if we said no today, an improvement, that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
If you said no today, we would not receive the money that they are going to give to us.
Okay. I'm just, that timing. And I understand why the timing is. I just, if there's a different way to bring it back, but maybe perhaps it's not. So
I think anytime that, because you are new board members, anytime that there is an emergency of a fire, when our public information officer lets you know that somebody's occupying our sites, we're moving forward in the interest of public safety and being a resource for the public. And sometimes we just don't have time.
And I understand that.
And it's, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, probably. So that's not.
We're basically using authority that we don't really have.
And that's what I'm saying. Maybe
Yes.
that can be taken up in terms of that may be a legal piece in terms of the authority when we're not in session, so that you can go ahead and do that.
Right.
But I'm just saying, I think it's just a timing that it's approval bringing back as opposed to approving to receive the dollars for that action.
Right.
So I think it's just timing, and maybe in terms of language. I definitely get the emergency part. I think it's just timing piece for me bringing it already approved. So I don't know that it would change anything in terms of that.
I would say in my experience for boards and superintendents and then extended to cabinet, ratification probably happens about 5% of the time. And just in general in the operations of a school district. It happens more during summer. Sometimes I will ask you to ratify a personnel appointment that I just needed to make because we opened school. We have more school board meetings in Santa Barbara Unified. So in the past, sometimes we would go for 5 weeks without a school board meeting, and we would talk about it going into those gaps. So I don't think there's any sort of advanced legal authority that you need to grant to us. It's more like, working together.
Yeah, and maybe it's ratification as opposed to approval.
It is. I think
Yeah.
that, again, my experience, I think we have to ask you to ratify, somewhere between about 5% of stuff. If it's big stuff, we could call an emergency board meeting. If we had a calamity with one of our facilities, we would call an emergency meeting. So, yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. So, any other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So it was moved by Ms. Sims Moten, second by Mr. Paredes Ulloa, and passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Hetjunk. We're going to move to one more item in the action, I guess.
I think we did that.
That's
So that, you
That's
actually
it.
pulled
Yeah,
an
just
item
those
that
two.
was actually.
Yeah,
on the
you pulled an
agenda.
action item,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fine.
Okay, so we're,
Yeah.
all right. All right, so we'll move forward with item I, coming events. And I guess I just want to announce that the first day of school is coming up, Monday, August 21st. And I know it's going to be a busy day for parents and students and teachers and administrators, and it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to the start of school and new processes, new information that we'll be receiving, but also just the great work that the district does, and appreciate all of the hard work that everyone has put forward to ensure that we can open school on the 21st. Anybody else?
Just watch the traffic. Salvador City College starts the same day.
Oh.
So good luck finding parking.
I'm going to start my day in Goleta.
Those weeks I start my day at 7 a.m. or earlier because there's no way I'm getting that traffic.
Yeah, so you're going to have to get up a little earlier than Mr. Perez Ulloa.
We'll also inform the board, how did Lauren put it?
Astronomical, a first day of school.
So that is the day of the solar eclipse.
Ah,
And it's significant enough that we are going to put out some guidance to our parents, to our staffs, because it is going to be probably the strongest eclipse that I've ever experienced. It's supposed to be 63%.
wow.
And so there's some cautions around safety that we just need to communicate to every student, and we want our parents to be informed. So we're preparing communication. It's going to go out next week. It's ironic that it lands on the first day of school, right at recess at 10 a.m. in the morning. So it's kind of cool, and we just have to be ready.
Well, it sounds like you are. Good job. Any other events you want to report? No? All right. Item J, future agenda items. Is there any agenda items?
No, but President Parker said that she was in a list of any future.
Right.
items. So we could just remind her, obviously she's not right now, but
Yeah.
look at that and see if there's anything else that we want to bring up.
Thank you. I was going to add that as well. So we will put that forward, that we would like the list that was already in existence for us to refer to so that we can find out what we might want to add to the agenda. So our next board meeting will be Tuesday, August 22nd, 2017. It'll be a regular board meeting. And with that, if there's no objection, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Woo!
Yay.